Do you have your notes?
I have some notes. Are you going to interview me, or
Yeah.
you want? Okay.
I'll interview you, and maybe I should sort of throw out the questions for you first, and then you'll see where the notes fill in.
Okay.
How does that sound? Okay, so this is Terry Demetrius for Cafe. So why don't I just sort of read these questions to you, and you could tell me sort of what makes the most sense. But, well, actually, if you could, just sort of describe sort of Cafe and the climate in which Cafe does its work, and why it does its work the way it does.
Okay. We are a grassroots nonprofit workers' rights membership group. And South Carolina is the least unionized state of the 50 states per capita. So as a result of that, we're in a very pro-business environment here. The state chamber runs everything, and the big business interests. We have a Michelin plant. We have an old textile magnet, Milliken company that is very powerful in the state. We have a new BMW plant. We're selling our workers to the lowest bidder, I guess, be the best way to say it. So, and what we do is try to teach workers about the rights that they have, which are very few. And then we also try to, the thing that we want to do is to organize people to realize that they have the power to change the working conditions in South Carolina. And so we hope that that's our mission, to uplift working families.
And what does it mean to be a workers' rights group in South Carolina? I mean, what are you in that state?
We're a nemesis of the powers that be. There is the South Carolina Management Bulletin, like a newsletter that comes out, and we are mentioned in there quite frequently as a union by another name. The Chamber of Commerce has recently done a seminar on war stories, and it's basically anti-union stories, and Cafe was one of the featured groups that they talked about. So, we're constantly fighting. I mean, we have companies, for example, Michelin Tire fights us on any kind of issue that we bring up in the, in the legislature. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Can you get a drink?
I'm sorry. We had, when we were fighting for workers' comp, they opposed us. We were fighting for some changes. Well, no, we were fighting for the right for people to choose their own doctor. I'll use that as an example. When they're injured in the workplace, because we have a system that says that companies can provide a company doctor. And Michelin opposed us on that, even though they allow their employees to choose their own doctor. So they opposed us because they're anti-union and they think we are pro-union. So that's the kind of thing. I mean, every place we turn, we come up against business interests in funding and everything else.
And do you, okay, I guess that if you want to sort of use an analogy for sort of the attitudes that you're all dealing with generally,
well,
both on the sides of sort of I guess, both of trying to organize and what you're organizing against or for.
Actually, most of the communities we're organizing in are poor black and poor white communities, low wage, working class. And most of those people are also very anti-union. They don't have, I mean, if they think you have anything at all to do with union, they'll balk at it. Even some of our members are anti-union. And it's just in the culture here. You go to Ohio or somewhere else in the nation where they have this long history of unionization, and you don't see that. But in South Carolina, you just can't speak about unions without getting people riled up. So we also have, at our levels, we can't teach labor history courses at technical schools. We can't have.
When you say we, who do you mean? Do you mean the state, or do you mean like the culture, or?
I'm saying Cafe.
Okay.
Cafe has tried to have labor history course in the school, in the tech schools, which are...
Right, that's the one that was Spartanburg one?
Right.
Okay, so we'll get to that. I'm just trying to sort of suss out the climate here.
Okay. So, anyway, that is the climate. And the other major climate that we have here is that all the people at the bottom are pitted against each other. It's largely been over the history of South Carolina race issues between blacks and whites, and now we have a lot of Latinos coming into the area, so they are added into the mix and pitted against the other low-wage workers. So there's this constant turmoil of people being very insecure in the workplace, but there's also the idea that unions are bad. So, you can't get help from unions, and by the same token, your job is really lousy, and, so when you turn and go to state labor board and discover the laws are weak and pitiful, so, then you have nothing. I mean, there's no place to go. So CAFE is trying to, most of our population is not union, so CAFE tries to fill the niche to represent non-unionized workers who have no other voice in state.
When you say represent, just so people sort of get it, like when you say represent, who are you representing them to?
Well, actually, our goal is not as much to represent them, or I really didn't say that properly, because our goal is for them to become empowered, to know that by the numbers that there are more of us than there are the people who oppose us to fight that.
Okay. Whoa. Oh, this seems much, much better. I think it was a battery thing. Okay, talk to me, honey.
Hi, how are you? What's happening?
Oh, but why aren't... Okay, just,
Hello?
yeah, just count.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Talk louder.
Hello? How are you? Fine. 1, 2, 3. Testing.
Oh, that's better.
Testing.
That's better. Okay. Wait. All right. So,
Where were we?
I guess where we were was what was the last example that you gave me? Oh man.
Here.
Oh, was letter writing. I mean, you were trying to explain to me sort of like what does it mean? What are you actually teaching them? You want a role, but
Well, the basic idea was that together, as long as we work together, we can and not fight each other, then we can change the powers that be. We can change the structure of South Carolina and change the working conditions. That we don't have to accept what's handed to us in the workplace, that we have the right and that it's necessary. Not only do we have the right, but it's necessary for us to take control of the workplace and determine how our working conditions will be.
and do most people know that?
No, not at all. I think most people feel like they work day in and day out. The conditions are getting worse and worse. It's sort of like someone said one time about putting a frog in boiling water or putting a frog in cold water and just gradually turning up the heat. If you put a frog in boiling water, he'll hop out. If you put him in tap water and gradually turn up the heat, he will boil to death. So it's sort of like that. We've been in this gradual pot that gets hotter and hotter and hotter. And, workers don't realize how bad things are getting until it really affects them personally. We've been talking for 10 years about temp work, and workers don't talk about that, didn't talk about that, and now suddenly it's like it's this new thing, only kind of jobs we can get are temp jobs. So,
And what was the example of that letter, of writing letters? You said there's a senator that said 10 letters and he'll listen.
I think we got way past that.
No, honey, we were like in a helium tank by then.
Well, there state legislator, and I don't remember if he's a senator or a representative. But anyway, what he said was that when he gets 10 letters on the subject, that he starts to pay attention to that. So that really perked our ears up, because he said, you know, if he gets a call, 2 calls, no big deal. If he gets 10 calls or 10 letters, it's a big deal. If he gets 20, if he gets 100, it's a major deal, and he pays really close attention. So, you know, that is something that we can really, really do. It's not hard to do, to motivate people, to get people to call or write or whatever. So that we've used that before when we're mostly on legislative issues. But the same idea applies to everything. If you've got one person who goes up to the boss and says, you know, this machine is hazardous, now maybe pay attention, depending on who it is. But if you have 10 people go up and say, this machine is hazardous, we're not going to work on it, then they start to pay attention to that. So it's the idea that, you know, the more it takes some critical mass before people start listening.
And as a rule, would you say, I mean, not as a rule, but as in terms of your understanding, is this something that workers they just don't know this?
I don't think they do know it. I think they're so busy fighting. You know, they work hard. They do jobs that are dangerous. They work in offices or in factories or somewhere where they're not allowed any movement, where they're watched constantly, where the working conditions are harsh. It could be 90 degrees. It could be 30 degrees. I mean, there are some floral shops where people work when it's 45 degrees. So, you know, it's...
Floral shops, meaning?
These places where people bag up flowers.
Right, and it's 45 degrees below zero, or?
45 degrees, period, you know, 45 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right, so
I mean, you know, that's chilly to be for a work environment.
Right.
So anyway, there are situations like that. What I'm trying to say is that workers have so many things on them at work. Just yesterday we had a man who went into the GE turbine plant here, and shot a fellow worker 6 times. Went out in the parking lot and shot himself and killed himself.
Oh my God!
So, I mean,
did you know him?
No.
Okay.
There's just, you know, stress levels on jobs are ridiculous, and people every day people are more and more stressed. So I don't think the average worker, when he gets home, is thinking about, now why is this the way it is? You know, most of them are just too tired to contemplate it, or they don't want to think about it once they're home, or, you know, then they have problems with trying to get the car to run and get the kids to school, and how are we going to buy new school clothes and blah, 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 blah. They're not sitting around analyzing the situation.
Okay, and on top of that, do they know that they have the right to do that?
The right to?
The right to do... I know, I thought...
No, because they're told. I mean, the one thing they're told over and over again is that they can't do things. That, you know, you can't do this, you can't do that, and they don't know.
But specifically, if I'm going to quote you, that how are people told that they don't have the right to change their workplace?
My roll is gone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can't.
Okay, I'll ask you some specifics.
I can't give an example.
Okay. So let's just one last question, which is, how are you structured? I mean, you're a statewide organization, which means what?
We are a statewide statewide organization, which means that we have 1,000 families across the state of South Carolina in 12 different chapters.
Mm-hmm.
Each chapter decides on issues that they'll work on as a community, and then we also have statewide projects that several chapters work on together, or maybe if it's a legislative issue, we might ask all chapters to participate in something.
Okay, and would you say, in terms of, like, in relationship to the textile industry, well, could you, I don't know, I mean, can you just, is there a way that you could sort of sketch out sort of the industry, like, industry, how industry, you know, which is the predominant industry, or, and sort of which, what, you know, I mean, you know, just sort of how does industry play itself out around the state where you have your chapters, and which industry sort of sets the tone, or...
Okay. The upstate, which is the area that we live in, where we have 5 chapters, I believe.
So upstate is around Greenville?
It's Greenville, Spartanburg, Anderson, Lawrence, between Greenville and it's sort of the foothills, sort of the I-85 corridor, sometimes called. That area is where most new businesses are located today, and so it's really heavy on business and industry. In other parts of
Okay, and those industries, would you say in 91 when we started working with you all, is that...
was still true, yeah.
That was still true?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was really starting to build up then. They were really promoting us. I think former Governor West was going overseas and promoting South Carolina as the place for businesses to move. We were really being touted all over because of the Rust Belt. People were moving south, and you know, we were being touted as one of the greatest places to move, and one of the reasons was that we have a great technical education system which businesses use to train workers, and it's paid for by taxpayers. So that works out really well. And then,
What a scam, huh?
And then the other thing is we have loyal workers, and we have no unions, and so that's how they promote us, as hardworking, loyal workers who will work for nothing and who you can do anything to, and they'll still hang in there.
That's how they're presented.
Yeah, we're presented that way.
So,
with a real good educational system that will teach them how to operate equipment.
okay, that's good. And what would you say? What was the? I mean, was there one industry that? What were all these industries replacing?
The textiles. I mean, the upstate used to be Greenville was the textile capital of the United States, maybe of the world. I don't. They used to have that written, like below our name on everything. We were the textile capital. It may have been of the world, but I know at least of the United States. And so textile industries here were the big industry up until probably the 70s. And then when the textile industry started having problems, other industries came in, because we have a body of workers who already have a mindset of, if I do my job and work hard, I'll have a job for life, and the company will take care of me. And because that stems from the old textile mill village sort of mentality of, you know, everything is provided for me. This is a cozy life. You know, they'll provide me with everything. And that in our area, before we started getting lots and lots of people, now we have lots of people from all over, and that's changing gradually. But there's again not that critical mass to make it. Most of the people who are coming here are from out of state and from other states, or management, or people who are able to relocate and take advantage of the low housing and low inexpensive housing and that sort of thing.
So the industries that moved in that replaced textiles were
All sorts of industries. They're Michelin tire. Now we have, in the upstate particularly, we have a heavy automobile suppliers, because BMW moved here. Michelin was one of the first big foreign companies. There are others, Hearst and some that were doing like fibers and sort of textile-related things. But Michelin was one of the first that was totally kind of different. And then BMW came in, and now there are like hundreds of little shops that some of them will make car seats, and some of them will make seat belts, and some of them will make, different whatever it is that automakers need. And
so the industry changed, but what about the attitude?
Well, the attitudes have been largely the same, except that since workers haven't in the past blamed people in their management or
the owners of the employers,
right, for their situation. So what they start to do is blame groups of people, like, these blacks are coming in here and taking our jobs. Now it's Hispanics are coming in because they'll work for nothing. So there's always some other reason that I'm losing my job.
And that still holds?
That does hold, because now it's temp workers, but gradually, people are starting to say, why is it I can't get anything but a temp job in Greenville? Most of the even big companies here, you can only get on if you go through a temp agency. And we have supposedly temporary jobs that last for upwards of 6 years. You get no benefits and nothing. I mean, you get a paycheck, but if you're out, you have no sick days, no vacation days, no nothing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so how, can you do, if you want to, if you can, that really sets the stage really, really well. So thank you.
And Minnie thanks you too.
Minnie, oh shit, Minnie, I'm gonna have to hurt that girl. Okay, so this is painless, right?
This is what?
This is painless.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So how do you recall? How Cafe first became involved with the project?
I think that Charles and Jean went to.
I could ask Charles that tomorrow if you want me to.
Okay, I think that Charles and Jean went to a grassroots leadership conference where I'm trying to think.
Okay, I know he's going to know that real well. So why don't we start with your memory of when you first got involved? How's that?
That is it. They attended.
It is.
Yeah.
Hickory, North Carolina, 1991. I know this. Okay, my life changed in many ways. Okay, so
the first time I heard about it actually was from Jean and Charles talking about, that they had seen this film and it was great, and it was about the Great Textile Strike, which none of us knew anything about or had heard nothing about. Didn't know what the Great Textile Strike was. So, that's pretty much it.
And did they come back and say anything? Like?
Oh yeah. Well, I remember them talking about it, and I don't remember the situation, but I remember them saying like they had just been and come back, and they were talking about this film they had seen and how it blew them away, and so but I just have vague recollection of them saying.
Okay. So, what is your strongest memory? In terms of like when,
I guess for me it was when you guys started calling the office on a regular basis and saying, I was working there and saying, we want to do this film and we want to promote it and blah, blah, blah.
So then it was really around the Greenville community screening?
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
How could you forget?
Oh, I haven't.
Okay, so why don't we start there? Okay, so at that point, I guess, that's before or after Spartanburg Tech? I think it's after. It's after, because Spartanburg Tech was in March of 95, and that was in the fall of 94. Yeah.
What was the fall?
Yeah, the fall of 94, autumn of 94 is when we did the screening in Greenville.
Okay.
At the Peace Center. Yeah. And Spartanburg Tech was like April of 95.
Spartanburg Tech came
Right.
out.
Okay. So, I mean, the Greenville screening. Do you want to?
Part of the Greenville, I was very interested in it because I had been in school. I had graduated from school in '92. I was very active in theater and la-di-la-di-la. So I was really happy to do something that I was comfortable with, and to talk about, promoting a film or something like that. It just was something that I really had a great interest in.
When you say comfortable, what do you mean?
I mean that at that time I was very new to grassroots organizing, and I never felt like I knew quite what was going on. And so it was good to have this, I know film. Yes, I know this. I can do this.
Well, when you say this, meaning like a cultural event?
Right. That it was something that I could identify with easier, something that I was more familiar with than working in workers' rights, which I was still kind of really struggling with.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting. And would you say that so this was your way? I mean, what was easier about it? Sort of presenting this to the community.
Well, I just thought it was exciting. I thought it was something that we could get people excited about, because it was going to be, a sort of a premiere. And that it was something that few people knew about, and I thought it was a great film, and so I was just really excited about doing it, and I knew it was something that I knew how to do. I knew how to pull an event like this together, so it was something that I really wanted to be involved in.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, because these are, like, important questions. Was it different because it was non-oppositional? You know what I mean?
Yeah, in some ways. I mean, I knew we were going to have opposition, because I knew we kind of had to sneak it in there. But also I knew that it was just more fun. It was just more fun than going out there and handing out flyers, and you were less likely to be shot. So it was.
Oh, come on.
it was just something that was fun for me. I just thought it would be great fun, and I thought that, and I really did like the film, so I thought it was going to be, I just thought it was the perfect blending of the skills that I had to offer.
Okay. And now, in terms of the choosing, like the place and advertising and that, I mean, was it risky? How did you know? What kind? I mean, you chose the Peace Center.
Yeah, we said that. Well, the Peace Center was new, and I would have to see when it first opened, but it was relatively new, and it was the kind of she place to be, and it was wonderful. And we at first we just sort of tossed the idea out almost jokingly. Well, what if we did it at the Peace Center?
Versus what?
Versus the Memorial Auditorium, or versus the library, or, some other place that we might have rented or gotten really, really cheap.
Would you do it in a union hall?
Yeah, if there was one large enough. There was,
So you would...
I don't know. I don't think we looked at that option. We just tried to think of where a place would be that would be large enough that would handle these people.
And neutral.
Yeah, kind of neutral. But, so then when we said that, it was like, well, you think we could? And so, I just called and asked. And I told them we were doing a film premiere, and they were like, well, maybe we could do this. So,
did you tell them what the film was?
Yeah, I told them it was a documentary on the uprising of '34, which, so where some people were killed. And so it was like, yeah. And these were real artsy types, so they didn't have a clue. But the Peace Center itself is, there was a lot of corporate funding that went into that. So I'm sure if it had happened, if we had had more lead time, it probably could have gotten ugly, because I think word might have gotten out. But as it is, we had it, and we had it booked, and they pretty much didn't have a choice after that.
Well, we thought it was like the Peace Center, like PEACE, like anti-war, yeah?
Right. No, it's the Peace Family, which means we made big bucks from exploiting workers, kind of thing.
All right, so but I won't. So by having it at, I'm going to show this to you all anyway afterwards. So by having it at the Peace Center, was that a big deal for Cafe?
Yeah, it was. For one thing, it was not. We were, like I said, it was built with corporate money. So it was not a place where we would have normally been welcomed. And it's an art center, we're just not artsy kind of folks. So Cafe wouldn't normally even contemplate holding an event there. But I think as a result of having it there, we attracted a different kind of audience, and we had a wider variety of people from the community who participated. We had folk from academia, and we had a different crowd than we normally attract. So there was, some of the artsy people and some of the intelligentsia of the area, and so we had a nice mix.
Well, and you had labor people.
Yes, we had labor people. We had groups from all over the state were represented.
What? So, when what'd you say?
I said an ordinary working people. There was just a wide range. There aren't very many things that bring that wide range of people together.
So what was it like when you were fielding the phone calls and people started calling in and reserving? Do you remember that?
Yeah. It was kind of wild. no, because one of the people who called was the former chancellor of USC Spartanburg, where I had graduated, and he knew me, and so it was kind of interesting that he was calling, and he ended up being like the chair. He's now like the board chair or board president for the Peace Center. So, but I thought it was kind of interesting that he was calling, and I think he was with the Humanities Council or something at that point. But there were, and then there were these people calling who said, I had relatives in that strike, and I want to see this film, and that was just like, wow, kind of blows you away to think about that. And so you would get these very emotional calls, and then you would get people who were, academics who were professors or whatever and were interested in seeing it because they did know the history. And they were kind of shocked that it was somebody was telling it in South Carolina.
I remember you got a phone call from a guy from Charlotte who called you from his car, who had read about it in the paper.
That's true. Yeah, that did happen. He'd read about it in, I'm trying to think of the Charlotte. I think he read about it in, I don't remember the name of the paper.
Huh.
But yeah, that was true. We had some really different phone calls.
You didn't keep any notes on those, did you?
I may have some. I've got like a whole big fat blue folder, but I can look through that.
Okay. It might be, it might be just some interesting specifics.
Yeah, because I have some notes in there, and I kept slips of paper so that some of that may be in there.
Okay. 'Cause I remember, people calling you, just over and,
People calling from everywhere, from different states and from all parts of the state, and it was really wild.
Did you expect to have so many folks? Do you remember how many folks came?
I can count. I can count and tell you, but
It was like 300, I think.
something like that. And then we had the thing the next morning, the workshop.
Right. How do you bring the film home with you?
Right.
And then, do you remember what happened? People just wanted to come see the movie again. It was like the overflow for the film.
We did have that because we ran out of space. We didn't have enough room to show stuff to all the people. And we were in a smaller section of the Peace Center, so apparently we should have gotten the big Peace Center. But anyway, it was great, and people called, and it was so fascinating for me just to talk to people and to hear the stories and to get different perspectives. And I was surprised at some of the people again, like the chancellor, who I considered was, right up there with the business interests in the state. So I was like, why do you want to come in? I didn't say that, but that's what I was thinking.
Wow. And what do you think the benefit of that screening was for you all?
Well, I think it opened, it introduced us to a lot of people that we probably wouldn't otherwise have known. I think Tom Terrell came to us, who's a professor at USC, came to us as a result of that. And, some of the people that were at the screening, we had never seen or known, and then the aftermath of the screening, the dedication and Honeypath and all that opened us up even more, because we had Springs, a textile company, donating, sandwiches, and then we had coverage by a local radio station and all that. And so we had people coming from all over again for another event but it widened our circles. It introduced cafe to a group of people who would not have known otherwise that we existed.
And who would those people be, you think? I mean, are a lot of those sort of...
A lot of them are still members. I mean, educators, and because of what we do, we don't get a lot of press. You know, we can hardly get our names in the paper unless it's in some bad way. But so we got our name out there, and we got people said, "Oh, you know, I didn't know this group existed, and what do you guys do?" And we did get some members from there. That, I mean, we got Robert and Kathy Lamb, who are leaders in cafe. Robert is now board president.
I know. I just found that out today.
Can you believe that? I'm board chair. I mean, that's just incredible. So, yeah. So we have people, and we have you guys, and there are people all around.
I have to tell you, I mean, this is just an aside, but for Robert Lamb to be board president, board chair, that's extraordinary. You know?
You tell me.
I'm telling you.
Yes, you are telling me. It is extraordinary, and it had to be an act of God, because it was not the way that I would have thought that board meeting would have come out. But hey, I left early, and well.
Are they happy about it?
I guess they are. They did it.
Okay.
But I mean, we had a white male before, and all we heard was white male shouldn't be it. But we went around the room, and no white female would take it. So Robert ended up being the guy. That was incredible.
Well, just in terms of self-esteem and stuff, I think it's great for him.
Yeah. Well, he was our treasurer before that.
Okay. So you're touching on a lot of things. I mean, you're touching on press. You're touching on access. And you're touching on people. Would you say, and people saw you in a different way?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. I can't really speak to that because I think we made new connections. I don't really have a feel for how people that already knew us felt differently about us, except maybe labor in the state was really pleased, and I think it was risky for us to do that because one of the problems we've had over time is having our name linked with unions, and so it sort of reinforced that, but it's,
But here were two separate opportunities where that happened, because remember the invitation that went out for the Greenville screening.
Right, had all the locals on it.
Right.
And it went to many of those groups, and so that was a big deal too, and sort of a risk on our part, because we've been saying, we are not union. We're not a union. We don't take union money, blah, 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 blah. And then suddenly, here we send out this thing with our name on it with hundreds of union locals listed beside it.
Well, there weren't hundreds, but a bunch. But they were union.
Awfully tiny little names and a bunch of them.
Okay, so there was union, there was foundations,
right.
There was, local humanities council. I think there was a teachers group.
Right.
So
I was talking about, down the side of the border where it showed all the groups that participated in the strike.
Oh.
That was a big thing too. I mean, it was, like all these locals that were named.
Oh, on the poster.
Yeah, on the poster.
Oh.
So that and the invitations. When you were saying invitations, I was picturing posters.
So why were you able to take the risk?
Because I think the project was worth it. I think it was a story that needed to be told. It's a part of the history of the people in our state that has been suppressed for all these years, and that people who grew up in a community where this had happened and knew nothing of it. And even later, when I went to Clemson to George came over there and did another screening, and this young black woman came up and said she was a student there, and she said, you know, I live next door to this mill, and I never knew this happened. So it was just like incredible. You know, people were, every time it was shown, people were blown away that how could this have happened? How could something this tragic and this important have happened in our community and we didn't know about it? So I think it was really powerful, and it was a project worth the risk.
And in terms of, so the first sort of big event was the Greenville screening, right? Okay, and I mean that was and that, I guess that was a couple of months of planning. At least. Okay.
We were, it seems like that for a while there we were fielding calls from New York and North Carolina and everywhere.
Right.
On a daily basis.
Right, this is true. And, you know, another piece of that was that, you know, you guys acted as sort of facilitators and major hosts of this event, though there were other co-sponsors.
Yeah, and you know, we did largely pull the whole
Oh, you did?
thing together as far as getting the place and getting the food and getting out the invitations and that sort of thing.
You did?
Yeah, it was a lot of hard work.
Oh, I know that.
And we still had other work that had to go on.
So I'll tell you though. So what a question that another organization would have in looking at this case study would be, why spend the time, right? I mean, did you consider this part of your ongoing work? Did it fit into the larger issues that you were addressing?
Yeah, I think it did in many ways, because for one thing, we were, you know, we wanted to educate people. We wanted people to know. And for another thing, it was a surprise even to us. I mean, I think when you talk to Charles tomorrow, I think he'll say, I remember him saying this in his interview, began because of a failed union drive with J.P. Stevens.
In what year?
I don't get that from Charles because I don't know the dates. I've got it here somewhere in his stuff. But the idea, I mean, the thing that we came up against time and time again was that textile workers are very standoffish. They're very closed. They don't want group. They don't want to organize. They're tough to organize. And so to find out that Southern textile workers had pulled off, you know, the biggest strike ever was just overwhelming, and it just begged the point of, wow, how did that happen and we don't know about it? And, you know, how do we let workers know that there is a history of this in their past, and what in the world made it hide for all these years? How did that happen? So, and I think the film beautifully answers those questions, and it's just really powerful as a result. I mean, I think, you know, we talk about how information is suppressed in third world countries, and we're all totally appalled by that. But to think that in a community this small and this close, where everybody knows everybody, and everybody knows everybody's grandparents, you know, and you're not John Smith, but you're Mr. Tom Smith's grandson, you know, how do you not know what happened just 60, 70 years before you?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's really amazing to me.
Now, so were these kind of themes and issues that you were interested in and trying to bring to people's attention before, or did the process of working on the film, because you all working, you know, I mean, Charles and Jean and others were looking at rough cuts and stuff, did that help concretize how you might do this work? And I guess I'm referring specifically to these workers' rights workshops, because were you doing those before we had, you know, pieces of the film that you could use like that? And
Oh yeah, we had done workers' rights workshops for a while. I mean, it's like one of the mainstays of Cafe. But it did point out to me the need for that and why we do that, and a more powerful way, perhaps, of bringing some of that home to people. But that would be a really good question for Charles.
Yeah.
I think he would have a better take on it.
because, you know, this is a really great help for me, because they started using the clip tape that we had. You know, it was like a 35-minute clip tape.
Right.
You know, it wasn't polished. Yeah, it was a 17-minute clip tape, and it was not polished, you know. I mean, it was just these little clips that followed a certain order, and I think they were using those like at some of the technical colleges before Spartanburg, you know, had that. Okay. Okay. So, how are you doing on your energy? Do you need to go to bed? Okay.
I had the craziest,
What?
this will be on tape. I just woke up at 3 o'clock this morning for no apparent reason, wide awake, tried to go back to sleep, finally got up at 4, went back to bed at 5:30, and of course, at 7 when the alarm went off, I could have slept the rest of the day.
Oh, God, do I know that?
All this stuff running through my brain. We had just come back from a 2-day staff meeting. And so I had all these, you know, stuff in my head.
Uh-huh. Hey. Anyway.
So that's why my energy is just kind of...
I hear you. Do you want to stop now?
That'll be good.
Okay.
Do you have other questions?
I do, but, you know, what you've given me is good. I mean, I could sort of, I mean, if you'd allow me to talk to you again.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, is it impossible to do it tomorrow?
Probably you could try me tomorrow evening. I don't really know.
Oh, I can't do it.
He's coming in, but I don't know.
Well, can you do it at work, or you can't?
No, I really can't. I've got way too much to do tomorrow, and almost every day.
Okay, and what
But
happens?
it's Saturday morning, like 8:30 to 9, or between 8:30 and 9, or somewhere around there. Jesse will be coming over around 10. So
And what happens to you tomorrow morning? Do you go to work really early?
I'm there before, usually about 8.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Between 8 and 8:30.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. So tomorrow morning is out.
Okay.
But
Okay. Well, okay. So if you then just why don't you take 5 more minutes with me?
do what?
Let's take 5 more minutes then.
Okay.
Okay. So I guess I don't know. So the Workers' Rights Workshop, I should talk to Charles about. Okay. Do you want to make any comments on sort of just what you saw as sort of the progression of the film in terms of the way you guys were using it? I mean, sort of follow-up after sort of either follow-up or after Greenville, or I mean, at the Greenville screening is the night that Kathy announced, the memorial.
Yeah. Well, after the Greenville screening, then we had the next day we did workshops on how people could really use the film, and so there was a lot of interest in that. We had great participants in that who had some good ideas.
Do you remember who came? Do you have a list?
I do have
Okay, because I thought that was unique. I remember there was like a teacher there and a Teamster.
Oh yeah. Actually, the Teamster is still a member of Cafe.
And did he become a member because of that?
Yeah, he joined during the uprising.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, we did, like I said, there are several people who became members and who are still members. Actually, he's on our board now, too.
Wow.
So, there are people who became active members because they found out we were out there and we were doing things that nobody else was doing. So anyway, we went from, again, you may have to re-hit this with Charles.
Yeah.
I'm really fading, but
Okay.
we went from that to using it in different chapters, wanted to see it. We have some chapters who still want to show it, who continue to want to show it to people because every time, new people join and they start talking about it, and so they say, well, we need to have another screening.
Is your list of it would be so amazing for a regular grassroots group to see, over the years, how many different screenings Cafe actually either had or their members had. I know that that's difficult.
I don't. We could probably come up with a rough list, but did you talk to Doris, or are you scheduling?
I'm going to talk to her in the morning.
Because I know they showed it at Quaker meetings and at different meetings, or they took it to different events.
Right.
They went to, and other people wanted clips, and so. There were teachers who wanted to take it back into schools, and that happened, and then there was, it just sort of snowballed. So I know that, I really don't know the progression.
Okay.
I know that it's been a lot, but I can't.
Okay. Between, me talking to Doris, me talking to Charles, me talking to Kathy,
Right.
Kathy
will know the whole progression. Charles probably will, and
Okay.
Doris will know what she did. Doris and Mike took it to several places.
Right. Okay. And who should I talk to most about the Spartanburg Tech debacle?
Charles.
Okay.
He'd have
Right.
all the info on
Okay. Okay. All right. Listen, this was great.
that. You might mention that too. Mike might have a different perspective on I would definitely get the details and all that from Charles on Spartanburg Tech. But Mike, since he was in the Spartanburg chapter, would also have
Right.
He did a lot with that.
Right.
So he would also have some insights, I think.
Okay. Do you, was there stuff from your notes from talking with people that you want to share with me? I don't mean now, but...
I think probably most of it will be covered. I could not find the notes that I took from Joe Du Bois, but I remember having a conversation with him.
I remember him and his wife just raving over the Charleston event.
Well, but he was like, I didn't have anything to do. I didn't know.
That's so weird. Because they were like, they had the mayor or the state senator. And
Yeah, they knew about it, and they knew...
well, all I need is like a couple of lines.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome to call them.
Okay, so I could get that phone number from you tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay.
That wouldn't be a problem, and I'm sure that, they'd give you their opinions. But when I gave him sort of an interview, he didn't have time to talk, so he wanted a format. So I sent him like questions, and he was going to email it back to me. And then he called me and said, "Really, I didn't have anything to do with it." Because most of my questions were about the beginning of the film. So, I mean, the early parts and how we got involved and all that.
Okay, I just want to know about the Charleston event as a spin-off.
Okay.
So he might know about that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you could give me his phone number tomorrow. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Okay. If, so I could talk to you some... Okay.
Probably, however long before 10. Once Jesse gets here, it'll be all right.
Okay, that's fine. I have to go to the airport at 10, so...
Okay.
Okay.
But not before 8 or 8:30, please.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Now, if you feel at some time tomorrow that you have a little more time, you call me. I'll be at the office.
You just trust me.
I know.
Trust me on this.
Okay.
There's no time.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.